This episode is brought to you by Serpents and Salamanders. More of that at the end of the show.
One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Croccast podcast. I'm your host, Nate, along with my co-host, Matt.
Hey.
And today we're joined by Viviana Ricardez of the Texas Turtles organization. Viviana, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nate. Hi, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. So, I want to first get started off, how you first got into animals and reptiles in general, and especially turtles.
Yeah, so it's very similar to everybody else. Kind of really young. We've all, a lot of us with insects and just animals and having things as pets. And it was just, finding turtles crossing the road. I really liked reptiles and amphibians more than, I guess, the fuzzy stuff, even though I liked all the fuzzy, fluffy, cats, dogs, bunnies, hamster stuff. Got really fascinated with reptiles and amphibians really early on. And my dad was over here yesterday, and I was showing him the juvenile box turtle pen that I have in my backyard. And the first little turtle that he saw was an ornate box turtle. I've got an ornate box turtle juvenile back here. And he said to me, he's like, man, I guess I should have never stopped and pick up that turtle for you, because now look at this. And it was all started with, my dad knowing I had a crazy love for reptiles and amphibians and picking up a box turtle or a slider. And then it just kind of became to this now. And he stopped and looked around my backyard. I says, yep, now look at this, now here we are. All these years later, deep in with turtles as I have become. So that's kind of, the one little thing that can set someone off. And as we like to say, send you down the path of ruin or the life of poverty and fun. Because, it's not a high paying gig or paying gig at all for some people. So, yeah, here we are. I'm extremely lucky, extremely fortunate to be doing what I'm doing at this stage in my life. And yeah, doing cool things like this, talking about reptiles and amphibians. There's so many podcasts out there now about turtles, reptiles, everything. And when I was a kid, I had no one to talk about this stuff with. I was very much alone in my own little turtley world. And that's it. I mean, the rest is kind of history, as they say.
So, what do you currently do for work?
So I have a very normal job because, this doesn't quite pay the bills yet. But what gets me up in the morning, as we like to say, is having the nonprofit TexasTurtles.org. And Texas Turtles really started back in like 2007. Herpetologist Carl Franklin, whom you've seen on social media, you should definitely know. He's done an incredible amount of stuff herpetology-wise in the last 26 years. He started this website called TexasTurtles.org, and I stumbled across it back years and years ago. And that's how I found out that there was more than one person, more than just me, that liked turtles in the natural history sense, in the ecology and what they do, what they're doing, that sort of stuff. The research, I didn't know, as a kid, it was called natural history or ecology. I just knew I liked this stuff. And I still say that a lot as this stuff, because it just encompasses so much of the natural world. So, yeah, so I basically ended up meeting Carl Franklin, a couple years back. He had the website, and we decided, hey, we can do a nonprofit. There was all this need for research and conservation, and as our tagline says, to fill a Texas-sized hole, because there's just so much that hasn't been done, or gaps and things that haven't been published on when it comes to turtles in Texas. And so, yeah, we both have this crazy burning drive, and everyone in our organization, right now there's 4 of us, just really excited about turtles and discovering these cool little things. So the real focus of my organization is this low-hanging fruit, as we like to call it. That's kind of been the word and the term we use over and over, of just the simple publications and natural history discoveries, conservation aspects, that sort of thing. So that's kind of just where we've been geared. We officially became a nonprofit back in 2019. So things got off the ground, and then, as you know, 2020 happened, and we just spent a lot of 2020 turtling, doing like visual surveys and stuff, and not so much the big community citizen science stuff that we were used to. And so that got put on pause, but now we're like back in full swing with surveys and having volunteers and having this really awesome community of turtle nerds, and just people from all walks of life coming out and helping us in this research and stuff. So it's been really fantastic. So that's kind of how, in a nutshell, of where our focus is as an organization.
Um, Let me ask you this: Why did you why did you guys go the nonprofit route for it? Mainly, I'm asking that for like if someone is listening, wants to do something similar, like maybe in the future, like maybe they're really into reptiles and stuff, and in the future they want to do something and like start an organization like that. Like, kind of talk about like how you guys got started, like or just the mindset that goes in with that and all that, if that makes sense.
Well, the nonprofit thing is obviously, it's just like, it's the way. Oh God, this is a funky one. It's just how we've set up the organization as far as the work, what we wanted to accomplish in that
Right.
conservation science aspect of it, really. I mean, it's not a business. We're not buying, selling, breeding turtles. So that's kind of, in my head, a lot of what goes into what the business aspect of versus the stuff that we do. So I know that's really, without getting into all like the government forms and stuff like that.
Right,
I
right.
hope that kind of answers your question. Yeah, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense. I mean,
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Good, Nate.
So, what are the main species you currently study?
yeah. So Texas is really, really awesome for turtles. Overall, the state has 36 different species. Of course, depending on who you ask, and if you want to break down subspecies, I'm counting every taxa, everything, because I think they're all count. Um, the main one that we've done a lot of work with here lately is obviously the alligator snapping turtle. Lots of nerds across the state from here and here all the way to Florida is doing a lot of work with alligator snapping turtles right now. So that's kind of been the big thing pulling us and where we spend a lot of our time. We're really interested also in things like southern painted turtles. Smooth soft shells is something we want to do. Just the general population assessments of a lot of the different turtle species in Texas. We're helping out with Kegel's map turtles. I really love the endemics, our Texas endemics. So kind of anywhere and everywhere there's might be this low hanging fruit gap is kind of going to be where our brain goes as far as even just a weekend um, out on trying to say, hey, let's go see if we find this species there, here, whatever it may be. So the big one, like I said, is alligator snapping turtles. What else? We helped out with box turtles. We've helped other universities with things like diamondback terrapins and gone and seen kind of just the overall stuff. Oh, Texas tortoises. We've got a little thing kicking off with that. Just kind of, it just depends on what we can fit into our schedule and our focus of what we see that could be low hanging fruit, the easy stuff, and then of course finding the bigger stuff. But when we're in the process of answering a bigger question of what's the population of this area or what's happening with this, there's all this other great little natural history notes that come out along the way. So that's kind of what gets us going, gets us excited.
What would you say is the biggest conservation issue when it comes to turtles? Like, would you say it's habitat or diseases or humans like running them over with cars or like what?
It's absolutely going to be human cause. It's the habitat loss. It's collections for the pet trade, which is a really big one, a really bad one, a really one that's definitely causes a lot. Things like urbanization, which is the road mortality, them getting hit, females going to nests, getting hit. Turtles and tortoises are the most endangered group of vertebrates, and I think most people, even that in the herp community, don't realize that, and they don't realize how important turtles are, and just kind of overlooked. So I feel like everyone needs to realize, especially herp nerds, is how important turtles and tortoises are, and all the stuff that they're facing with like alligator snapping turtles specifically. Um, Obviously human interaction, humans poaching them. Poaching's a big problem when it comes to alligator snapping turtles, and things like fishing, trot lines, hooks, the casual fishing stuff. The trot lines will absolutely kill 100+ pound alligator snapping turtle. Like, we've had one and collected them that's a big female that was killed by hook ingestion, and we get to take X-rays of some of the stuff and what we can and see hooks in there. So that's going to be a big one as far as kind of like in Texas where people hook them fishing and stuff like that. And I get sent videos all the time of ASTs getting hooked. And most of the time people try to cut it out, but they pull up this big monster, this big dinosaur to them, and obviously they're kind of feisty or dangerous, definitely in a sense for someone that doesn't know how to work with them. So they don't always. They sometimes cut the line, and you kind of hope for the best, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, it's a big. Humans are definitely the big problem with everything turtle related. In a nutshell, there.
Do you host any like events to people how to like remove hooks from turtles if they accidentally hook them?
Not yet. If people call us, most of the time people just like are casual fishermen or sports fishermen that try to get it out just from the videos that I've seen. But it's really not that hard. You definitely need like,
Yeah.
a sturdy piece of wood and long pliers and just almost, one person holding it real still. I mean, it's hard to tell someone how to do something when you're so comfortable doing it, and we just know how to do it. Or they can take it to some wildlife rehabbers can do it. Some veterinarians will do stuff like that. It just really just depends. It's kind of been a tricky one on stuff, but yeah, it's possible. It just takes some brave people to
That
want to
is
do it.
strange though, because I mean, even I've been fishing since I was a little kid and caught turtles all the time. Not all the time, but pretty frequently, and including alligator snapping turtles, and remove the hooks. I never thought of any twice about it, but I'm also a reptile guy, so maybe
Yeah, a lot of people do cut the line, and then
yeah.
we've seen turtles that have had a hook like on the roof of their mouth coming out their nose. So we've seen scars where it eventually a heel, and I guess the hook it gets expelled. It's hard to say because all we see is this redder slider with like a messed up septum and like the nose and the top jaws one piece. You see all these variations of hook injuries and ouchies that they have and that they survive. But we don't know the ones that have died because of it. So can't really say, oh, well, look how these turtles are surviving off hook injuries, but we don't know all the ones that died. So it's hard to have a good actual stats on that one, at least right now. One day maybe.
What do you think is the main reason for herpers overlooking turtles so much?
I have no idea. I would have to ask. I would have to put out a poll. I have no idea. But I mean, I just it always seems that way, and like I said, at least for me, there's like a lot of snake people. It seems like, and salamander nerds, lizard nerds. Everybody's kind of got their. Yeah, I love salamanders too. Everyone's got their own little thing, but I feel like I don't know. Maybe we'll take a poll. Turtles are like and the biomass, turtles' contribution towards the ecosystem is higher than all the other reptiles. So
Maybe it's just because it's not something you can like you can easily herp a salamander or a lizard or whatever. Like turtles, I mean,
right.
You can feed them readily, but like they're in the water, or most of them
right,
at least.
maybe because if they can't catch it, maybe that's one of the things. It's like they can't flip it, they can't catch it,
It's
and
not
I
as
mean it
tangible.
really, yeah, maybe because like we do a lot. What we kind of do from our visual surveys and documentation is like through binoculars. It's very similar to birding. In fact, someone says it's very much like birding. I said, yeah, it kind of is. It's the same almost concept of going out looking and watching them. But I don't know. it's I don't know. I absolutely can sit there and watch a turtle through binoculars pretty easily, but easier than I can a bird. As much as I love birds and I really turn into a bird nerd in the winter, obviously, turtles are easier to watch and sneak up on and just sit there and watch them and can learn to ID stuff. But hey, I don't know.
Looking at herping turtles down here in South Florida is actually like it's completely changed how I looked at it down here because it's so different. It's the water in a lot of areas is a lot shallower and it's pretty clear in a lot of areas. Like it's
Yeah.
reddish brown, but it's still really clear. And if you have polarized sunglasses, even not,
Yes.
you could like I have some really cool videos of turtles in the water swimming around from a good distance, and it's still like a pretty good video and stuff. So like, which is completely different from where I grew up in Georgia. Like you see the turtle out of the water, or if it's on a log, otherwise
And then
you
boop,
can't
boop.
see it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, there's a
So
lot of creeks and ponds. It just depends on where you are and if it rains that you can walk through the creeks and find turtles and observe them that way. But I think it depends. Each person's different. Maybe people don't know how awesome turtles are, and that's something else that needs to get out there on how cool they are and how awesome they are and understand their importance. It's always an education aspect with all this. So
For sure.
Yeah. So, circling back to the pet trade, what are the species that seem to be most hard hit by the illegal pet trade?
oh gosh, easy box turtles are up there. I
Yeah.
know y'all talked to Emma earlier, and she's taking on a huge feat and doing excellent on her stuff. But yeah, box turtles are a big one. All the really cute, from musk turtles, mud turtles, spotted turtles. Oh gosh, wood turtles. Let me think what else is. I don't. I'm trying to think of everything that I've seen come through the stuff. It can really be anything. The box
Landing?
turtles are maybe. I mean, the rarer they are, of course, people want them. And if, of course, it's over in Asia, and there's a huge demand for them here, and a lot of people go out and poach turtles and sell them and flip them and all that stuff. But um, that's another story. So there's a huge demand for these exotic pets over in Asia, and then from there they get dispersed out, and even in Europe, um, for fancy, neat, rare looking turtles. A lot of it is box turtles and stuff like that. So,
That's
and then of
interesting.
course alligator snapping turtles. Yeah.
Which is kind of odd considering that East Asia would have such a big market for them, considering they already have a native box turtle over there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's like if you go to the markets in Jakarta and Indonesia, it's just a overall huge herp and exotic everything. It's mammals, it's birds, I mean, there's songbirds here from the U.S. that get poached and sent over to Asia. So,
Huh.
oh yeah, it's a huge, especially
And
out of
they're
Florida. They catch them in Florida and they'll send them over to Asia and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a huge, and even though they have their own boxers, they want something that's rare. They want something from Mexico or Latin America or here in the U.S. The spotted turtles, um, the eastern box turtles, wood turtles, that sort of stuff. So yeah, people want what they can't have or what's not native to them.
and it's all like it's mostly pet. There's no like food or like in Kentucky, they're not eating a lot of like in Kentucky, how they
So
eat turtles, they're eating a
so
lot of turtles.
In Asia they have lots and lots and lots of registered turtle farms. They farm their own turtles there for consumption, be it the Chinese
Mm.
soft shells, whatever it is, of all kinds of stuff. I wish I could remember all the details right now of how many registered turtle farms there are, but there's tons of registered. So they produce their own for their own
Food.
eating, but of course they say wild caught tastes better or whatever. So I think they
Really?
can also oh yeah, they also produce it for their own pet trade. I mean, there's alligator snapping turtle breeders over there that produce turtles for the snapping turtles for the pet trade, but
Oh,
they always want the bigger one. They always want a wild caught. There's always what someone
Now,
can't have.
yeah, I remember.
with the,
I remember reading a few years ago, like an alligator snapping turtle would turn up in a wild river in like eastern Siberia or something like that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they get turned loose anywhere. I mean, they only keep them so well unless someone's prepared to really take care of them. I mean, they get out or someone dumps them. I mean, they can
um
shove everywhere.
now these farms that are raising them for consumption and stuff, are they doing any kind of like conservation work, like how the American
No,
alligators?
not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Mm.
like I said, if they're over there breeding soft shells or Chinese soft shells for their own consumption, then it's all goes to the market. It's all food trade. I mean, there might be some pet aspect of it they can sell, but they don't. What are they going to do if they raise? I don't think they. I've never heard of that. Like I said, I wish I could remember the details of this one talk that I'm thinking of, but I can't this second. But no, it really is a commercial. It's like cows and chickens here. That's what it is.
Would you
So.
do you think that's a worthy direction to go? That like how they did with the American alligators over here, trying to get them to do conservation along with the consumption?
Alligators and turtles are two totally different ball games almost in that sense.
Okay.
And there's even debate on the whole alligator thing in and of itself. But when it comes to turtles, because turtles take so long to reproduce, an alligator snapping turtle takes closer to 11 years to reach sexual maturity. It's not something that I don't it's not something
Mm.
that is going to be efficient for someone here to farm for
It's not
food or for
fiscally.
farm and sell. I think like with in the 60s, 70s, back when Campbell's Soup was producing turtle soup, they would fish out alligator snapping turtles and common snapping turtles from the southeastern part of the US. A lot of it's out of Georgia, went to Camel Foods, and they did that at an extraordinary rate. Here, Louisiana allows the take of one alligator snapping turtle or alligator snapping turtle per person per day. Some people take it to eat it. That's still a lot. It's more than what it can really handle. There are people that are kind of do this backyard breeding, releasing, head starting. I don't know a ton of detail on those folks, but there's a small aspect of it. The real key is to do something like what Emma has done is the reintroducing things that have been confiscated once they've been taken from a seizure, because it is crazy numbers, and trying to reintroduce them. But that's a whole that's kind of where the focus needs to be, is how to, one is protecting the land. If the land and these private lands can get protected, or rephrase that. Having protected land to where developers can't go in and destroy habitat, one. I mean, we've seen really good pockets of alligator snapping turtles. From what I can say, I don't have any details yet. Obviously, everything is still in the beginning stages of actual population diagnosing of that stats, but it seems like there's really good pockets in Texas of nice alligator snapping turtle populations. So far from what I can go out on a limb and say. Like I said, none of that stuff's, none of those stats have been done yet, but that's kind of where things are. So if you could protect the lands, educate people, that's kind of be figure out what to do with alligator things like box turtles that have been confiscated, reintroducing them in a while, finding that kind of stuff is going to be the better course as of right now, from what I can think of at this second.
So, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, do you know if there's been any studies done? So, for instance, like here in South Florida, the number one cause of death for panthers is getting hit by cars. So they have, like in the Everglades, they have a daytime speed limit and nighttime speed limit because panthers are mostly crossing the road at night. Do you know if there's a specific time when turtles are mostly crossing roads? If so,
It depends.
Do you think it's something like that?
It depends, and there are people that go out. There are a couple different groups that will go out during these nesting seasons and help turtles cross the road, or kind of be turtle crossing guards. Most like diamondback terrapins up in New Jersey, there's groups that do that and watch out for that. So there are people that actively take on that, like turtle crossing, making people aware of nesting season and stuff like that. So yeah, there's that effort. I mean, here in Texas, it's kind of everything's very big, as you've heard, and no, if those have lived here, so it's kind of like you see that turtle crossing on the rural road, and it's a turtle going to nest or whatever it is, and so some people still run them over because ignorance is out there.
Yeah.
So, how are alligator snapping turtle populations doing as a whole and in Texas?
We have no numbers to actually say that anything as of yet. There is a study called quite a few years back that was done, and nothing has really been done since then, hence kicking off my organization, people from different universities and other private groups doing this statewide alligator snapping turtle assessment is kind of what's happening right now, and it's really in the beginning stages of any concrete numbers or any saying this is what the population looks like as of now and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're in the beginning stages. I'm, like I said, kind of can go out on a limb a little bit and seeing what I've seen in the different habitats in different places in Texas, that this seems to be doing pretty well. Just like I said, as a snapshot little glance, conservatively saying, okay, maybe this is a good little spot for them. But there's, like I said, all kinds of other stuff, and no numbers have been super crunched yet.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I've heard several different definitions here, but what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise?
Okay. One, it's jargon. It's who you ask and what the thing. The morphology and the overall shell shape, where a tortoise is suited for land, their feet, or digging, or a higher dome. It's kind of all these different things that go into where they primarily will hang out on land, and they do the majority of their thing on land. In Australia, where you go, and they call everything a tortoise. Sea turtles are all sea turtles, and then some people, like I said, jargon, everything in between. But yeah, that's kind of like what you're looking for is the overall features of what makes a tortoise. And a lot of it also goes back to like how the taxonomy is of the different families and what's closely related. Like box turtles are part of the Amidid family, meaning they're more closely related to cooters and sliders than they are a tortoise. So that's that's how that works. In a brief just little blurb.
That's
there.
what I've always heard, and that's what I've been telling people is like, well, more specifically, I heard that it's the bone structure in their front legs, kind of, basically.
Yeah, tortoises
different.
tend to have more of the
Yeah,
elephant-like feet, and suited for getting around on their different.
and then I heard the Australia thing that Australians consider
It's jargon.
sea turtles.
Yeah, yeah, kind of jargon and.
Um, I don't know. I imagine you don't know a whole ton about sea turtles since you're.
Yeah, sea turtles aren't super my thing. It's even since I was little. Um, I grew up and lived far away from the coast, and that's it. I've always gravitated towards turtles, freshwater turtles, box turtles, tortoises, and yeah, sea turtles get a lot of publicity. Lots go into it, which is great. Obviously, there's definitely a need, and they have had a lot of
Right.
threats, and they're all federally protected and that sort of thing. So obviously, there's a need, but I live so far away from the coast and don't get to work with them. Maybe one day I'll get my fix, but that's kind of that.
Well, let me ask you this. You may not know the answer, but I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought this kind of struck me as odd. So a lot of freshwater turtles have like that gill-like structure in their cloaca for like hibernating and stuff.
The bursal sacs.
Yeah. Why don't sea turtles have it? You would think the thing that lives solely in water would have something more like that.
So I don't know the details of the cloaca of sea turtles. Obviously, not at all, but a lot of turtles have some sort of way of using oxygen. It also depends
In the
on how
water.
cold the water is. Okay, so when you're talking about the like bursa gills, there's actually a turtle called the Fitzroy turtle in Australia that uses, and it takes in water through their cloaca and uses these kind of gill-like things. And if you have there's a book called Freshwater Turtles of Australia by John Cann. I should go pull it off the shelf. And then another book that Carl Franklin did, and the illustration in there is done by a friend of Carl's, and it shows the illustration. So that's what I'll tell you to look up as far as how they use oxygen from the water and that sort of thing. Here, it can be different. It's different for each species. There you go. And how cold it is, and like a callidra, common snapping turtle, being able to breathe underwater. And a lot of turtles will swim up under the water and get pockets of air from under the ice. So it's a couple different factors. It's a bunch of different.
So okay, so my understanding was that was pretty much the turtles that were hibernating underneath the mud would have.
Yeah,
It,
I'm sure they have. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some way of them taking taking up oxygen and storing oxygen within the stuff. And when your heart's beating, that slow, you're not using that much oxygen anyways.
Right.
So they've got it figured out. I would have to go dig for some real hard stuff for you. But yeah.
Yeah, I was talking with Rob Carmichael once, and he was telling me that even up where I live, and he lives up in Chicago, north of Chicago, well, even up here, which is outside the normal range of alligator snapping turtles, you can't keep them outdoors all year long, so long as
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a very heavily aerated pond.
I know a lot of nerds up in New Jersey that have alligator snapping turtles, in Connecticut that leave them all year round. I mean, turtles are way more tough than people maybe realize. I mean, like I said, I've seen the Texas tortoises make it through this ice storm we had in Texas a few years ago, and they don't range as far as North Texas, but now we know that obviously a lot of them did survive. I'm sure some stuff that died was already compromised in the first place, but that's par for the course on any animal in any strenuous event. So yeah, they're really tough. Turtles that people wouldn't think survive in one place do, and part of the low-hanging fruit that I got to observe post ice storm is observing a turtle that's not native to Texas obviously surviving through all the ice and snow, and I found it out basking a few days later, so it was pretty cool. So stuff like that.
What turtle was that?
It was a Pseudomys nelsoni. Oh my gosh, what's the common name, y'all? Florida red-bellied cooter. Pseudomys nelsoni. Yeah, obviously released pet. They do show up here in Texas frequently, and from what I could deduce, looks like it made it through the ice storm, and we went out there when everything was frozen over, and a couple days later, see his head's popping out. Got some good pictures, so planning on writing that one up soon as I get around to it, hopefully, if I can.
Yeah,
get to
but
it.
just living up here, it seems like just for me that of all the reptiles, turtles are like the first ones to come out after it starts warming up.
Yeah,
Like the
right.
first ones you see.
Oh yeah, I definitely see sliders all through the winter. I've seen map turtles out in January. I've seen Texas cooters basking in January, out hanging out. So they're super tough. They do okay. So there's even like reports of wood turtles out in the snow and walking around and stuff like that. So they're super hardy, super cool, super tough.
Um, do you find do you get a lot of invasive turtles or just reptiles in general over in Texas, or is it pretty?
Thankfully, a lot of what I've seen pop up on INAT, if you want to call it invasive or obviously hasn't caused an issue as of yet that we're aware of. Florida red belly cooters high in the pet trade release, yellow belly sliders that are not native to Texas, those show up and get released in our waterways. We've seen what looks to be hybridization from just looking at a turtle you caught that looks part yellow belly slider, part red ear slider. Like I said, just as at a glance. Lots of pets, a lot of people's Russian tortoises escaped and are constantly being posted on INAT, and people think it's a Texas tortoise or they're out. But so things like Texas tortoises, but Russian tortoises. Let me rewind again. People's pet Russian tortoises that escape and get out, because they're sold at PetSmart here, and those pop up on INAT and stuff like that. But I don't know if call it invasive. There's no proof as of yet of them reproducing.
It's
They
being
could.
established.
I'm sure they could, yeah. But so far, those are just like escape pets, escape sulcatas. The occasional desert tortoise shows up in Texas every once in a while from someone translocating it or trying to keep it as a pet. They move to Texas, it gets out, that sort of thing. So,
Can you
but
imagine
nothing,
finding?
nothing like in.
Can you
Sorry, you
imagine?
cut out.
No, I was just gonna say, could you imagine stumbling upon a sulcata tortoise out in
Oh yeah,
Texas?
all the time, all the time. It gets posted all over the internet. Somebody's tortoise is out. Post it here. Got call so and so, or my tortoise got out. So
That's
it's
crazy.
there's people that seen them wandering down the street of a neighborhood, and you just kind of like people tell them corral it, hold tight, start knocking on doors, or post it on Facebook whose tortoise got out. So yeah, they're good at getting out. As you'll know, sulcatas are pretty little
Yeah.
tanks. They'll
Yeah,
bulldoze
they'll
through
knock off the
anything.
walls to give it half a chance.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So that's a common sight, especially this time of year.
That'd be cool to. I mean, yeah.
Walk down the street and you're like, "Hey, there's a sulcata there." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll happen one day. I've said people post on our Facebook if they found a sulcata like in the woods of East Texas, and I don't know if someone found it in a neighborhood and drove it out to the woods, or what, or they dumped it out there because they didn't want to take care of it any longer. Who knows?
I
That
mean,
happens.
if sulcatas do become an established invasive, that one I wouldn't even be mad. I'd be like, I think it's best.
They could. I mean, they're not that hard. They're pretty easy to reproduce, but they have to find each other and all be that many loose, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. Plus, it keeps freezing. A lot of people did lose their pet sulcata from this last freeze just because they couldn't bring it in, and the power was out for so long that even those that had backup power or didn't have backup power, they didn't think the power was going to be out for that long. So anyway, that's kind of off course, but.
Do you know for like more terrestrial like turtles, so like box turtles and stuff like that, do they have a pretty wide range? That means like, do they have a pretty good spatial memory?
Okay, wide range as far as their distribution across the state species wise, or like home range, like an individual home range, like 2 miles, 3 miles,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I help out a girl do radio telemetry, but I don't know anything of what she's had so far, of what she's wrapping up her master's thesis. But they do travel. I mean, they have a good 2 mile ish range, give or take. Like I said, I haven't looked at any of her stuff. Haven't peeked at anything else recently. This long time ago that I read a bunch of stuff like that. As far as home range goes, there's some literature out there that's been out there for a long time on all that. But yeah, they have a small home range and don't typically do well translocated and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So
if that's what you're asking, I think that's a question you're getting at. I mean,
just like what's their home range, and then like if they have good spatial awareness range because of that, like if they're moving far or anything.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely get around. They definitely could put some get haul across their little preserve or wherever they are, and males will move more than females or be more active. It just kind of depends on all these multiple factors and stuff. But
If
yeah,
they're not, if they're, you said they're not doing well when they're translocated. What's the cause of that? Is that because they don't recognize where they're at, or what?
it could be various things. I mean, there's one study that was done at UT Tyler, not that long ago. I don't know if it got published, but I friends with one of the guys that did it, and they got all these wayward box turtles that were like from rescues or someone had taken out of the wild as kept as a pet, and they just kind of tried to release it, not soft release like Emma's doing, a hard release, and just dump them all in this beautiful preserve, and they all died. They either got eaten by raccoons or they tried to swim halfway across the lake or different various things. And I don't know. It could be anything for why none of those made it. So that's part of the aspect when it comes to like, what do you do with a bunch of confiscated box turtles, and
That would be
it
some
being such an important fact. That's why it's such an important thing of that. So that's like, people have had box turtles for 20, 15 years, or they don't know where they originally came from, and so then they end up finding long-term homes for it. Be me or whatever. Have a few things, but that's that.
Wow. So that's a pretty big deal, then, knowing where, like, if it's a
Yeah,
wild
if someone finds a turtle crossing the road, we say, hey, yeah, put it back in the vicinity that it came from. They know where they're going. They typically know what they're doing. Obviously, it's going to be an issue if there's highways and byways and
Right.
cement blocking roads and stuff like that. But it's kind of a case by case basis is how we look at it, and using Google Maps and being like, okay, here's woods like right behind your house, like just leave it alone, and but then you'll find it in the middle of downtown Dallas. A little ornate box turtle I had was found pretty much in the middle of downtown Dallas. There's just nowhere for it to be or come from, and it was just someone's pet that got out. Anyways, next topic, since Nathaniel's over here needs to wake up.
Sorry about that. So since I'm friends with Andrew, he's told me a bit about his work researching chicken turtles.
Yeah,
And
he's doing chicken turtles and other.
Kind of found a chicken turtle once with him, and the reason I use the word kind of was because was a dead on road animal, unfortunately. But you want to go a little bit more about chicken turtles?
I have not worked with chicken turtles, other than they're really, really cool. They've got a really neat ecology. Andrew's worked plenty with them. I just finally got to see our first ones a few weeks ago, like 2-3 weeks ago. We went to another university study site and just kind of sat and watched and enjoyed watching them crawl out, watching them do their thing. They've got incredibly long necks. They specialize in eating amphibians. They've got a very unique habitat selection and behavior and ecology. So that's it. They're really wild looking. they're just incredibly neat looking and kind of rare. They used to range all the way here up North Texas, and have been documented up here in North Texas, and that's one species that definitely looks like their range has shrunk and don't do well with urbanization, and so that's why there's another university taking that on as far as figuring out any type of population assessment and their range and distribution. Just one aspect of that group's work. So yeah, that's all I can tell you on chicken turtles, pretty much, for as of what's happening in Texas with them.
So what turtle native to Texas would you say is currently the most at risk?
It might be chicken turtles. Chickens and kagels. Kagels, snap turtles have a really small range. Not a lot known about them population-wise. There was a population study done a couple years, 10, 15, 20 years back. I have to remember. And then, like I said, there's a professor working on it. We're helping him now with that. So those are probably the two really cool, rare, just not a lot known. Not a lot's known about smooth soft shells or southern painted turtles in Texas. There's nothing published on that. So I really like southern painted turtles. That's something I really want to get to at some point when a lot of this alligator snapping turtle stuff slows down, but it may never slow down, which is fine with me. I'll keep going.
Darn it, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, I had heard someone had told me about this. I don't know anything about it, so if you know anything about it, it'd be awesome. So I don't even know the name of it, but someone had told me at one point that there's a somewhat arboreal turtle that likes to crawl on like shrubs and bushes and on rocks and stuff. So it's not really arboreal, but it'll climb on bushes and shrubs and rocks and stuff. Do you know anything about that?
In Texas?
Not in Texas. Just
Or
I
in-
don't. In general, I just heard that.
Who'd you hear this from? Where did this come from? What's the root of it? Who said what? I gotta have some background info on this because I'm trying to like narrow down because musk turtles like to climb trees. A lot of turtles like to climb trees and stuff. So is it a region?
Okay, well, I didn't even know musk turtles climb trees, so that maybe
Snapping turtles climb trees.
I don't have. That's actually really interesting. So maybe we'll go into that, but I don't have any background information other than I don't remember what we were talking about. Other than I think maybe we were talking about like flying snakes and lizards and stuff, and someone mentioned that there's an arboreal turtle, and that's
someone is either they were messing with you, or they're just pulling one over on you, or it's a specific. I don't know what the heck who that came from. You have to tell me who that came from or whatever, because that's I'd have to need more background where you're going with that or whoever with that. But like mud and musk turtles are really good at climbing branches, and a lot of turtles, will bask out of the water, get a good height out of the branches. Snapping turtles will climb up on trees and logs and can get pretty high up there. So
okay, when you said trees, at first I thought you were talking about like trees. I was like, wait a minute.
Like wood and trees that come out over the bank and in the water, right. Like climb up that stuff. That's from what I've seen, that sort of stuff. I mean, my box turtles in the backyard will like to climb up on parts of bushes. I mean, anything in captivity will climb up and utilize something to go bask on. So I don't know where where that was coming from or where that was going or who was. I'm trying to think all parts of Asia of anything. But no, they're great climbers in general. So if they see it and they want to go there, they're going to go there. I've seen turtles climb like straight up on concrete and stuff. So not sure where that. You have a lot of these. I heard this, but I'm like, well, where are you hearing this? Like, is someone checking with you, or are you just making stuff up?
So, well, I also a lot. Well, I watched nothing but documentaries growing up. So some of it is like vague, like memories of something I might have heard somewhere that I might be just confusing information, or when you're
that's okay.
When you're a small child, you hear something, you go in a different direction with it. So
there's definitely things when I was little that you kind of think, understand it differently. But I mean, back in the books that I had as a kid, everyone held a snapping turtle by the tail. That was like the common way to hold a common snapping turtle, is holding him up by the tail. And you see all these old pictures of people holding. So, I mean, we just, you learn, and we learned stuff since then. We've come a long way in everything.
Sure.
So,
For sure.
So, Matt, do you have any other further questions about flying turtles?
Yeah, I want to know where the heck this, where you're going with this or what. I need some background.
I honestly, well, so it was, well, I don't know. I'm kind of hesitant to say the name because because
they might be messing with you, or they're dingus, or
not necessarily that they're messing, but maybe they meant something completely different.
And you just butchered it,
and someone hear it and think, "Oh, that person must be an idiot," but they were.
Or they or you just took it and butchered it, or somehow. Okay.
Yeah, butchered it.
Anyway. Okay. I'll think about it. I'm gonna go ask and look stuff up, but off the top of my head, I've seen a lot of turtles basking in kind of, trees off the water and climbing and mud and musk turtles. So, anyways, next question, Nathaniel.
Do you do any other work or research with anything other than turtles?
Oh, no, not yet. No, it's been all turtles all the time. The last few years, full speed ahead, that kind of stuff. I really love snakes. I would love to do more stuff with salamanders and get out. See, so I don't have salamanders so much in my part of the state, in my area where I live. So that's a East Texas cold weather type thing. But I don't like the cold weather, so I've seen a good amount of salamanders in like Pennsylvania and Kentucky, visiting friends there. But I've seen hellbenders. I'm trying to think what other stuff I really like other than turtles and salamanders and snakes, I guess. But yeah,
That's one downside. The South Florida has a lot of really cool stuff. One downside is they have like two salamanders, and they're like
Yeah.
your generic like two-line salamander. I don't remember the other one, but it's nothing really impressive. And they're not even super prevalent either, so that's a downside. But
Yeah.
do you do a lot of herping? And I imagine you don't have a lot of free time, but
Not so much anymore. I have a friend coming up. We are going to do a little bit of stuff this weekend because he wants to see some stuff that he hasn't seen. So we might try seeing some stuff here. But no, like I said, it really is a lot of turtles all the time in the recent years. I don't herp so much anymore just because people on social media like to be jerks and I'm over it and I'm tired of seeing all this stuff on stuff. I'm like, you know what? Y'all just not made this fun anymore. Of course, it's just I haven't had time. I do so much with having a normal job and then turtle work and stuff that
yeah.
um
You,
yeah.
are you over in you may have said this, I missed it. Are you over in East Texas?
No, I live and mostly based out of North Texas, but I spend
Oh,
lots
okay.
of time in East Texas as of lately with all these species,
Oh, closer to
mostly
that's right.
alligators.
Yeah, like closer to Dallas.
Yeah. I'm in
Okay, yeah,
the
you
Texas
mentioned that.
Dallas area. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time in East Texas, and Central Texas is a really awesome part of the state for turtles, and it's kind of been the two main areas we've been at a lot for turtle work.
Interesting. Um, I think is that. I think that's all my questions. I feel like I'm going to think of something later, but I think that's all my questions.
Okay.
Are there
What?
actually? I have another question. Sorry, unless you have a question there, Nate.
Go ahead.
Are there are there a lot of are there a lot of turtles over in West Texas where it's a lot more desert?
Not quite as many. Obviously, wherever there's not water, there's less. But there's some pretty
Yeah.
neat species that the Rio Grande cooter ranges all the way up into you know southern part of New Mexico. We've seen them out there with all that oil rigging stuff and the way the water's treatment. It's super salty water from all that oil work that happens out there, so it's a lot less. There's definitely ornate box turtles out there. In the Big Bend region, there's the Big Bend slider, which is a really cool slider. So there's a few things out there. A really rare mud turtle, the rough-footed mud turtle. Some people call it the Mexican plateau mud turtle. That there's incredibly like 300 left in this one small region of Texas. So there's a really rare um, not really widely talked about known turtle out there that's really cool that's still on my list of getting to see just because of how isolated they are and their
Hmm.
you know inability to access. You can't just go to any river or stream and pop out binoculars and see them necessarily. So yeah, so there's some pretty cool stuff. Mud turtles, yellow mud turtles, are out in West Texas. Sorry, you said East Texas or West Texas? You did say West Texas, right?
West Texas, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we got yellow mud turtles, rough-footed mud turtle, box turtles, Big Bend region, the Rio Big Bend slider, the Rio Grande cooter that's down along the border of the Rio Grande, Laredo Del Rio, that part all the way up to Albuquerque. Albuquerque, where is it? Yeah. So I've seen them in New Mexico and a good portion of their range. But
The
yeah,
the
that's some
rough
really really neat turtles.
the rough-footed, are they rare just because lower numbers, or they're harder to like hide more?
They have a very limited, isolated population, and that population seems to be very genetically related. And there's a group of nerds working with that. Um, that not a ton has been published as of yet on that, but so there's a group of nerds working with that. So it's a very unique, very rare, very small number. They're going to be elevated to species status. Right now, it's a subspecies, considered subspecies, getting elevated species status. So yeah, that's like I said, another group of really rare, interesting turtle that a lot of people just don't know about.
You said the genetics are very similar, like as in like inbreeding wise, like well, not inbreeding
Yeah,
necessarily,
they're
but
very closely related because I mean, there's these small tanks and small areas. Like I said,
it's a
I
lot of
haven't been there. Carl's been there. Knows a little more about it than I do on this stuff, obviously, on as far as this goes, and I'm not quite the person to get into the weeds on
Yeah,
it, but yeah, it's a really
That's
unique, small population of a really rare turtle. Probably the most rare turtle in the U.S. Easy to say, but probably say. So yeah.
Okay, so got another question, Matt?
Before
cool.
Nathaniel falls asleep over here.
Sorry. Go ahead. Ask your question, Nate. Sorry.
Yeah, Nate.
So what's your favorite turtle?
Oh God, I've asked this question so many times. I will say that the one I'm closest to is the three-toed box turtle. Very similar, small home range, kind of same behavior. Just that's the kind of turtle I guess I say I relate more to. That's kind of my spirit turtle, I guess. Sure.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say
that's
your
it.
spirit animal.
My spirit animal. Three-toed box turtle. They're awesome. They're super great, super cool. Kind of people don't. They're not as flashy and shiny as the eastern box turtle, and tend to be more brown and plain and simple, but super super cool, fascinating. For a box turtle, fascinating box turtle. Period. So yeah.
And how big was the largest turtle you've ever found?
So the biggest one we did was when we did for Animal Planet, 123, 124
Wow.
pounds that Coyote caught. That was really cool. And then we've caught another 23 pounder a couple years back. And then this past weekend, 112 pounder. So in there, the biggest documented is the folks of Stephen F. Austin, 211 pounds. And that's a new Texas record. And yeah, that's the new Texas record right now. But yeah, ours is about 123. So we'll see.
That's full-grown man-sized turtle.
It's huge. They're really really neat. They look bigger than they weigh because the one we caught a few weekends ago was only 112 pounds. I thought it was gonna be a lot bigger. I thought it was closer to the 120
That's still
side of
really
things.
big.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. I was like, it's only 112. It looks bigger than that. Yeah, well.
You said Coyote caught that? Coyote Peterson?
Yeah, we did an episode with him, Animal Planet, a few years ago. A couple episodes with him on his Brave Wildernessy stuff, and it was really cool. It was really, I did not think he was gonna pull it off, and yeah, he did. It was pretty funny.
Out of curiosity, you don't have to answer the question if you don't want to. What are your thoughts on him?
Oh, this one! I finally got asked this question all these years of me doing these, and someone's gonna pull this on. Okay, I guess I've been waiting for the years of this. So, I was the biggest outspoken nerd as far as not being a fan. And one day I got this email, had no idea what Brave Wilderness was, saw that there was this email address, and talking back and forth to someone named Mario. And I was like, oh, hell no. And I called Carl, who's the president of the organization. I was like, there's no way, because they needed help, assistance, education, permit, the whole thing with this episode they came to do. And he'd been visiting this area out in East Texas, visiting this turtle pretty semi-frequently as far as doing other episodes. So I was very like, no way, no way. And it's one of those things that if you stayed open-minded, and thankfully a lot of his stuff changed from the very beginning, obviously, because there's a lot of the stuff, and I talked to Mario about this intense, and so much that thankfully oh, did y'all go back? There you go. I don't know if that was my battery or what. It's getting the 10-minute warning or 10% warning. Yeah, I'm glad we stayed open-minded. I'm glad Carl was open-minded with it, and I'm glad I got to meet him in person, and I'm glad that things changed from how he started off in the business and what he's put out lately with like the series he did with a lot of young kids. I was just super excited for it. Like, it's just been really, really neat seeing it. And I think that takes a lot for someone to be like, we see it all the time. We see the stupid free handling. We see people in Florida. You've seen it all the time doing really dumb stuff with venomous snakes and all that stuff. So the fact that he's changed and like taken it to this educational aspect, I'm just like, this is really cool. And it's really, really, but people said the same damn thing about Steve Irwin. They hated him. People in the zoo back in the day, same thing. It was, I mean, he did some kind of dumb stuff in reality too. I mean, things that we wouldn't do now. And I was like, and we all loved him. I absolutely loved him. So it's been very cool. And of course, you're never gonna make some people happy. A lot of herpers, herp nerds, herp people, whatever, are never gonna be happy no matter what you do or don't do. So it was a very long process for me to be like, okay, let's do this episode. Go look at the episode. Go watch the episodes that I did with him. It's the most recent one, the behind the scenes where we did all the morphometrics was really, really cool. And that's what needed to be out there. And that's what people need to see. Because he's not appealing to the average herp nerd. You're never going to make the herp nerd happy. I mean, we're just not. I mean, you're not. Yeah, right? You're not. And people are going to find anything and everything about you posting a picture of catching a snake. It doesn't matter if you or whoever it is, they're never going to be happy. So when we saw how many young kids got excited over it and how many young kids are doing all like just super duper excited, like, okay, that's who needs to know how important turtles are. That's the generation that need to know this important stuff and get excited about it. So anyway,
I haven't seen any of his recent stuff, but
exactly.
I've recently somewhat changed my opinion on him because I was actually talking to a guy about it because he said his daughter watches Coyote Peterson and stuff, and I was telling him, I told him why I disliked him and stuff, and then I was saying how and then he said, well, I like my daughter watching it because if it's between Coyote Peterson, someone who's educating her on whatever, or watching some stupid mindless cartoon, he'd prefer to watch that. He's like, it's getting my daughters into in the outdoors, stuff like that.
It absolutely is. If you watch the Wild Field Trip, the series he just did, where he picks a child from each part of kind of like the U.S. He goes in Ohio, he does Lake Erie water snake, he does Florida, and he takes these young girls and guys, which is really freaking cool, seeing these really young girls like doing this stuff. I'm like, holy cow, it's an excellent series. So you go back, and man, if someone would have told me I could have made $1 million by getting bit and stung, you would have freaking done it. Like, how many times have I gotten bit and stung for free? Like, okay. Any herp nerd would have done it for $1 million. It was like, I mean, I got nipped last week by an AST for the first time, and hopefully the last and only time. I'm not gonna recreate that one, but yeah, it's pretty. His stuff's been really good. It's definitely the other stuff that's like, oh god, no. But like I said, you're never gonna make some of these people happy. That's how it is.
I didn't watch it, but I saw his thing on getting stung by the red velvet ant, and I said the same thing. I was like, man, I've been stung by those before.
We've been stung for free. I was bit last week. I get stung. I got scratched going down there. I set a trap. I'm all scratched up. I get bit. Yeah, insect stuff is easy, and a lot of people, because I was that person that said all this crap, and my sister's like, "Oh my god, that stuff's gonna come back. Now you're actually meeting him and you're working with him, and you said all that stuff." I said, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "Someone's gonna pull that out of the internet archive."
Yeah, the woodwork.
He's like, "Someone's gonna pull it." Like, here you are. But yeah, it keeps an open mind and seeing how someone's changed and progressed, and whether or not they are gonna take a different approach and change things, and realizing, oh, that's not how I should have done. Like, okay. And a lot of people that I hear gripe about it all the time have never watched an episode. And I had never watched an episode until I got an email, and I was like, oh, this is what it is? I would have been all over it as a kid. I was all like loving Steve Irwin constantly. I watched every single thing on Animal Planet. And looking back now, it's like, oh, that wasn't safe. Shouldn't be free handling that. He shouldn't have been doing that. That's probably staged. I mean, it's been like this for decades and decades and eons. But
yeah, when the guy had said that I was talking to, he's like, no, I guess my girls, they're all into it and all that stuff, into outdoors and biology and stuff. That changed my mindset because that's what I always tell people when I'm defending Steve Irwin.
It's the same thing. They said the same thing about Steve Irwin. So. And
I was just like, huh. I was like, that's exactly the same thing that I say about Steve Irwin, is that he may have not always been exactly correct in what he said or what he did, but he got so many people into it.
Bingo.
That he did a really
90 million subscribers? 90 million. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. They published a scientific paper on reaching the average person through community, like an actual scientific paper that was published of just their work and how they used YouTube to reach millions and billions of people. It's crazy. Anyway, Yeah, go
And
watch his recent stuff. It's really, really cool, especially seeing
what
his kiddos.
really originally turned me off from him was before I had that conversation and stuff. Was I had a kid come in. I was interning at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo, and I had a kid
Oh,
come
I
in.
know those nerds.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know you knew those nerds too. I was up there a couple years ago. Okay,
Oh
at
yeah, it's a
Herpetology
great
Weekend.
place. It's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
But
That
anyways, yeah.
makes sense now. Okay. Anyway, my brain's going. Okay.
But yeah, I had a kid come in that was asking if we could take all these different snakes out so he could get bit by them and stuff. I was like, this is super weird.
Yeah.
And then
Totally not. Yeah.
he wanted to hold an alligator. You know, we'd let people take pictures with alligators with their mouths banded shut and everything. And he was like all upset the mouth was banded shut. He's like,
Yeah.
why is the mouth banded shut? And we're like, because so you don't get bit. He's like, no, I want it to bite me.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, okay, that missed the mark on wood. And I think, yeah, old
And
versus the stuff
finally he
now.
told me it was because he watched
Yeah.
Coyote Peterson, and that's when I was like, all right, I don't like this guy.
Yeah,
And so,
and I was, like I said, I was there. My sister's like, oh my God, you said all those things and you wrote that on the, like, and now you're like, yeah. So, and again, I had never watched an episode.
Yeah.
I was talking all this crap and I had never watched an episode until, we worked with him. So it was really cool. Like I said, seeing things the way things cut and edited and behind the camera is different than how they really are.
Yeah,
It just is. And seeing it and living it and knowing him. And I texted him last week, like it's a different thing. You'd be like, oh, okay, you're a normal. You're a normal. Yeah. I mean, like he's a normal person. He's just another normal person. I mean, he texts me happy Thanksgiving. It's great. So, I mean, it's
That's
Yeah,
really
and
cool.
that kid who was asking to get bit, it's pretty obvious he'd never been bit before. Otherwise, he wouldn't be asking for it.
Yeah. No, it's not,
I've
and
been
like I
bit by
said,
a little gator, and yeah, actually, it was pretty funny. It was at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo. The guy who
Yeah.
was supposed to hold the mouth shut wasn't doing it right, and I
Oh,
went to
funny.
go band it, turned
Yeah.
and bit my finger, and of course, a little kid sitting there wanting to hold it, and then he sees my my hand just pouring blood out, and so, but I was calm about it and stuff. I went and he held the mouth shut correctly, I bandaged it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go get a band-aid. Just walked off, but the kid was just like, what just happened?
They don't, and you know what? Think about it. If you see a lot of fake stuff on TV and you don't know what's real, and you're so young, I mean, there's that element too of being kind of too young and no one explaining it to you. I mean, what wrestling? I don't know if y'all know this, but there's back in the day there's wrestling WWE stuff, and kids would try to recreate it and kill themselves and get seriously hurt. Because I mean, you see that, and so I also obviously there's an aspect of why he changed, and Mario is just an absolute incredible biologist himself and stuff, and they're just really cool. I really enjoy seeing him hopefully I can see him again this year. Maybe we'll see. Anyways, it'd be great. It's been really great with him. So yeah, now it makes sense. I've got 5% left on this iPad, so.
Which is funny because I always okay, we'll wrap it up here. But yeah, it's funny because
we don't have to wrap it up. I'm just saying, if I go bye, y'all know why. I got 5% one.
Jim Harrison at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo.
I know
not a big fan of Steve Irwin.
Oh, I know. They're not about. We're gonna skip that section. I know. I was there. Like I said, I was there a few years ago.
Yeah.
We'll fast forward.
Yeah. So same exact reason. So yeah, it's just
I know
how the generations kind of go. So.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. Well, Nate, you got any more questions?
Fine.
Nope.
All righty. Well, I guess this is a pretty good spot to end since you're about to conk out on us anyway. So, but yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. It was fun.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was different. It was fun. All right.
Awesome. That's good.
Thanks, everyone. TexasTurtles.org, Facebook, Instagram, all the things.
Awesome. For sure.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you
Check
for
it
coming
out.
on.
Alrighty.
Thank you for coming on. See you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
This episode was sponsored by Serpents and Salamanders. For all your high-quality snakes and salamanders, go to these guys. These guys have been longtime good friends of mine in the reptile community, and I have gotten multiple animals from them, and I can attest to the high-quality animals that they produce. So go check them out, hit them up their Instagram at Services Salamanders, or check out their website. You could also find them at Facebook at Services Salamanders. Thank you.